Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. I'm Gyi from Attorney Sync, and I hopefully, as you're hearing this, have just returned from Indianapolis, Indiana for the University of Michigan's coronation as national champs in the men's NCAA basketball tournament.
And I'm Conrad Som from Mockingbird, and I'm going to miss all of the basketball this weekend because I am going to be winter camping.
Very nice. Where were you winter camping?
This is up near the place where I patrol at. I am doing a final class. It's a 3-day overnight camping, search and rescue exercise, and that's what we're doing.
But in addition to basketball and winter camping, what else are we talking about today?
So, Gyi, as usual, we're going to start with the news, and then we have two wrap-ups on Techshow. And the first, we're going to talk about your amazing presentation on AI. I've called this How Agencies Fucking Lie to You. And the second segment we're going to go into is what we have seen as a shift in the makeup of software, in-house marketing people, and law firms, how we see this changing dramatically over the next 6 to 12 months.
Music.
Welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing, teaching you how to promote, market, and make fat stacks for your legal practice. Here on Legal Talk Network.
All right, everybody, welcome to Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. As always, we start with the news.
Breaking news from Smokeball. They have partnered with Thomson Reuters to create the premier legal technology ecosystem, or so says their press release. And Conrad, one of the things that we saw at Techshow is, I'm calling it a closing of the ranks, but essentially partnerships, building their own, customers building. There is a lot of calling it closing the ranks in legal tech. What do you make out of this announcement from Smokeball?
Well, this is all around having access to data and information, right? And there's kind of three players. And we'll see the valuations of these companies are astronomical. And the question that you raised in our pre-show is whether or not there is room for these, what I will call pretty exorbitant valuations at this point in time. So we'll see what happens. And the other side of this, and we're going to get into this in a later segment, is the big takeaway from Techshow for, I think, both of us, is that software vendors are now competing directly with an in-house person at a firm. This is going to be a fascinating game. And next, if you want to talk further about private equity, money, big money, MSOs, PE, the legal industry, join us, me and Gyi and Tim Mackey from Vista Consulting, at a seat at the table. This is going to be held at the Ball Fields in Baltimore on May 6 and 7. We would love to have you join us. Just as part news and part disclaimer, if you did not have your funny bone on last episode on April Fool's Day, when Gyi and I announced that Lunch Hour Legal Marketing had been bought by Amazon's Alexa fund, and we launched our third co-host and digital SEO expert, Claudia, that was all a bunch of bullshit intended to make you laugh.
Ha.
And the response was as flat as Gyi's ha, to be blunt.
In other news, did you know that Lunch Hour Legal Marketing has a subreddit? And if you didn't know that, exciting breaking news, we have been astroturfed by another legal marketing agency. I'm not going to call them out on the show, but if you're curious about astroturfing and why people would do this, stay tuned to our segment today when we talk about the impact of Reddit and astroturfing on your AI search visibility.
As we talk about underhanded, shady horseshit in the digital marketing world, John Henson great opinion on law firm listicles. Listicles essentially being illegal. Gyi, and you're going to have to correct me on the legal part of this. But if you make a listicle based on nothing with the pure intention of manipulating results, we are the best law firms X, Y, or Z. That's no bueno. And John Henson will be speaking at our Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Summit to go deeper into this issue.
Yes, Lily Ray called this out on LinkedIn. So shout out to Lily.
This is Lily Ray?
Lily Ray brought it up, and then listen to this. Go ahead.
Wait, but hold on. The reason why I'm surprised is Lily. Lily is not a lawyer. Lily is one of the original cast of SEO nerd marketers, right? So I thought this would have been from an attorney, but interesting it came from Lily Ray.
So Lily, as Conrad mentioned, is one of the preeminent SEOs, VP of SEO and AI search at AMCIV. Global thought leader in the space, one of an expert's expert. And she posted on LinkedIn that it's brought to her attention that a lot of these listicles, the way that companies are doing them, is potentially illegal. And Nick Worker from Answering Legal saw that post and said, when I read this, I think of Gyi. And I said, when I read this, I think of John Henson, and tagged John Henson. So here's an example of the networking impact of LinkedIn. John jumps in and breaks it down. Short version is, if you're going to create one of these, there's guidelines. This is not my expertise. Talk to John. We'll put a link to the show notes. But the point is,
come to the summit and hear it directly.
Come to the
John.
summit. Yes, and I think, again, tactically, if I'm a lawyer and my SEO or GEO or AEO or EIEIO bro has started creating these listicles on my behalf. So but the way this would go is that you hire an agency, the agency's like, hey, these listicles seem to be really working for improving retrievability in AI search. So ChatGPT, AIOs, Google AI mode. We're going to go out and we're going to go and you're paying us to go out and create these lists where you're listed as the number one law firm. Maybe we're publishing that on your own site. And if you don't disclose, if you don't follow these guidelines, you're on the hook. Now, I will tell you this, it might be illegal under the FTC guidelines. It's certainly false and misleading under your rules of professional conduct. And so this is a double no-no for both from a rules of professional conduct standpoint as well as from an FTC guideline standpoint. But when has that stopped lawyers in the past? Go for it.
That was my next question. We've just given you guys a whole bunch of things that you can do to dominate your market.
And maybe if you're looking for a new practice area, you can be the listicle lawyer and help companies navigate the legal complexities of getting in trouble for fake listicles, announcing themselves as number one.
Well, that's John Henson. He's already got that cornered. I mean,
there you go.
He's the guy. You're
competing with John.
All right.
That's right.
We have an amazing Ignite talk from Lee Rudin called Your Merchandise Sucks. And here was the write-up that he offered us. No one wants to wear a shirt with bullshit and bullshit PLLC plastered across it. Law firms get giveaways and gifts all wrong. In 5 minutes, I'll share my firm's bold branding ideas and provide takeaways that every law firm owner can utilize.
Get Rude is coming to LHLM. We are super excited to welcome him. And if you know Lee and you've seen some of the stuff that he's posted online, I think this is a great opportunity to learn from someone who's found a way to do branding and positioning that works really well for him. And I think you can pick up a couple ideas from Lee.
And finally, before we get to our first segment, also happy to announce Kerri Coby White appearing at the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Summit. I invited her last year and she didn't come. We had tried again and she's going to be here talking in depth about intake. So we hope to see you there. Sign up at lunchhourlegalmarketing.com. We are not selling out yet, Gyi, but act now because these tickets are limited.
And if you like what you're seeing here on YouTube, why don't you like and subscribe? Let's keep this conversation going. We love comments. We love topic suggestions. We love questions. We love heckling. We love trolls. Speaking of ranking in Google AI mode, here's an episode on the whole topic.
What's it called, Gyi?
It's called How to Rank in Google AI Mode. This is popular. Let's take a break. And we're back. And as many listeners know, Conrad and I were in Chicago together with covering ABA Techshow. And we wanted to do a recap on Techshow and some of the kind of the observations that we had and some of the other things that we think are going on in the both legal technology and legal marketing space. And one of the things that kept coming up was this concept of how do I rank in AI search? And in fact, that was one of the things that I presented on. And I felt like felt like this is very self-promotional talking about what I talked about.
That's fine. We're going to talk about Gyi. And listen,
I kind of got thrown here because this segment supposed to be like overall tech show recap?
No. Gyi is being sheepish because this is self-promotional. And I will say this out loud. This was the best talk on AI from a marketing perspective in the legal industry that I've heard, hands down, by far, bar none. And
well,
the
first
reason
I will
for that,
say, go ahead.
Well, I'm not just kissing your ass. You know the reason.
I will say thank you.
Okay.
And I will also disclose that you are a good friend and very kind and very generous with your praise.
Well, here's why it was the best, because it is the only one that I've heard that's not full of bullshit. Okay. And I think what you talked about was, for starters, the difficulty, in fact, the impossibility of tracking. Why? Can you go, just for our audience here, can you explain why you started with why it's so difficult to track success in AI? You gave two really solid reasons.
Well, I got a bunch of reasons, and I'll the first is this concept, and this is really the genesis of this whole talk, and because again, it's not just about the tactical things you can do. You know, I'm on the emails too, folks. I get the emails from all of the SEO, AIO, GEO people, and the ones that really catch my attention are these ones that talk about we've reverse engineered the technology and we know what to do. And so my first point is that even the people who create this stuff are like, it's exhibiting behaviors that we can't quite explain. And so at a starting point, if it's not throwing off red flags to you that some person that's claiming to be able to get you ranked in these technologies has reverse engineered it, I don't know what to say to you. Like, shame on you. Like, is this April Fool's? I don't know. The second thing is that there are massive user behavior differences between how people engage with a prompting, a generative AI technology, and how they've engaged historically with search. And look, there is overlap. There's no question. Keywords, people are still using both Google and ChatGPT and other AI search surfaces with prompts that are reminiscent of keywords. But that's not the end of the journey. They're refining the prompts. The machine is doing follow-up prompting. The way that people converse with it is fundamentally changing. And so the first reason that tracking these things is problematic is because the tools are not actually showing you visibility for prompts that your potential clients are actually using. They're largely creating these synthetic prompts to mimic what they believe would be, and they're doing that primarily based on historical notions of search queries. So it's not actually tracking what people are actually using. The second thing is what I say, Rand calls it inconsistencies. It's a huge level of flux, meaning you do the same prompt 100 times, you get a different answer almost all the time. Maybe not, depending, and people are going to say blah, blah, but, and then layered in, of course, there's a personalization layer. So there isn't this concept of a universal response. And so you add up these things, changes in user behavior, the interface of the technology shows, the flux, the variability in the results, and that many times the legal services consumer journey is occurring across platforms without a connecting click. This is something that we saw a lot even in our research partnership with Near Media, where even people that start on ChatGPT and do research on ChatGPT and are provided a bunch of responses. One is that sometimes those responses, they actually trigger GBP profiles with GBP UTM parameters that are going to tell your analytics data that this is a GBP click when actually this was occurring in ChatGPT. And two, sometimes people do the research in ChatGPT and then they open up Google to validate contact information and reviews and testimonials and stuff. And so for all those reasons, it's just being way oversold that I'm going to get you to rank, which is questionable even a thing. And then the way we're going to measure this is with these third-party tools that generate synthetic queries and are largely just talking about the number of times that you show up in a prompt set, not actually like you rank number one for this prompt
query. Yeah. And so like, I want to get into that because it is, you called it synthetic queries. The circular reasoning on this is honestly mind-boggling. So just listen to how stupid I'm going to sound for the next 30 seconds. What we're going to do.
Give me the pitch. Give me the pitch.
Yeah.
Give me the pitch. I'm the lawyer. You're the GEO agency.
AI to guess what is being fed into AI to then estimate a result of what AI is going to show for an AI query. It is so fucking circular. And what happened, and then you get this so people are calling this visibility. You get this visibility. Oh, well, you showed up. That doesn't mean we clicked. It doesn't mean anything happened. It's just it happens that you showed up. So you're literally using a computer to guess what people are saying, to then tell a computer what a computer is thinking about and how that computer responds. Not to mention the fact that it changes all the time. Right. And it is personalized. And it's just insane.
In order to do this in any way that would have, and even in the as silly as that example sounds, in order to do this in a way that would have any kind of validity in any kind of scientific basis, you have to do it at scale. And so you have to spend a lot of money.
Keep going.
To do it.
Because you're going to piss me off. Right.
Well, you're right. You're spending, just to do quote unquote prompt tracking, it's thousands of dollars a month.
Okay. So and these tools, so what happens? You have this visibility score. You showed up X number of times. Great. Merry Christmas. Now, as these tools are writing more and more queries, the likelihood that you show up more and more is not because you're doing better, it's because they're serving up more and more queries, right? Like you're getting a flat absolute number as opposed to a percentage of what's actually happening in reality. It's madness. It is the AI beast eating the AI beast's tail, telling you that the AI is doing great, and it is madness.
So
by the way, even worse, the agencies know this. They're not stupid.
Yeah.
They know this. This is the same bullshit that they pulled when they're like, I can get you to rank number one in local results. And then they show you that, yes, if I'm standing in your lobby, you actually do, in fact, rank number one. Well, that's what I said you would look for. Or go back to the SEO. I can get you ranking for 10,000 keywords. And then they give you a bunch of keywords that no one has ever looked at for like, a whole set of zip codes or something like that. They know better, and they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes. And that drives me crazy.
Now I understand why you love this talk so much. Let's do the tactical things that I think that you should be doing. And the starting point on this, to your point, is like, well, what do we need to do from a data infrastructure standpoint to actually be able to track anything at all related to AI? And I don't know if you have thoughts on this. I have kind of three things that I think about.
Go ahead.
The first is to configure your analytics tools to segment generative AI tool traffic. So meaning that you're like, okay, if ChatGPT is generating a click back to your website, there are ways to create dashboards in Google Analytics that can say, hey, look, this is refer traffic from ChatGPT. And you can be like, we could actually track, if you configure it properly, you could track conversions that are from ChatGPT. And so that's the first thing that I would say is if someone's selling you on this stuff, I'd be like, okay, are you going to set based on your benchmark here, agency, what do you believe is a realistic number of qualified cases and consultations that are going to come from direct traffic from ChatGPT through to my website and convert? That's the first thing I would do.
Let me ask you a question, Gyi. Is that going to pick up traffic from Gemini?
Yeah, it's gonna be very noisy, and it's gonna depend on you can filter. You could have a sub segment for Gemini. So I would segment. And by the way, I'll give a shout out to Dana D. Tomaso from Kickpoint Playbook.
That's been a while.
Yeah, and she has a great guide on configuring your analytics for this for the do-it-yourselfer. But out of the box, it's not Google Analytics. You got a lot of issues based on this configuration, and I just gave an example in my rant about the problems, but there's not much you can do for the GBP situation because you can strip the UTM parameter. Because remember, if ChatGPT pulls in your Google Business Profile with the Google Business Profile URL UTM parameter, no matter what, that's going to register as a Google Business Profile, Google Local click. However, step 2, which we talk about on the show all the time, is you absolutely must collect qualitative attribution intake data. How did you hear about us? How did you find us? What did you use? How do we think? Because that's the only place you're going to see that. Because guess what? That conversion from Google Business Profile, when they say ChatGPT, you need to look at those things. And I'm not saying you give 100% weight to either of those, but you're going to see that as part of the consumer self-reported journey. And then the third thing that I think is, and we've been talking about this for years, but I think it's more important than ever, and I'll give a shout out to Rand again at Alert Mouse, which is basically like the real version of Google Alerts, but there are a lot of different social listening tools. But you absolutely must monitor brand search demand. And you should be thinking about, are you seeing more people searching for name in Search Console? And are you seeing more people talk about you across these places that are leading citation sites? And are you engaging in the conversation there? Like, that's a great directional indicator. If you're like, hey, a SEO, AI search company, are we seeing more people talk about us on forum sites? Are we seeing more reference citations on directories and third-party publishing platforms, and then participating in conversations where you can? Like, those are the big 3 things that come to mind. And that's just from a tracking standpoint. At the end of the day, you still need to be able to say qualified consultation where these tools played a role in that journey. Like, you're seeing qualified cases and signed cases where it's either self-reported ChatGPT or you're seeing ChatGPT as part of that quantitative click journey.
And this gets all that much more difficult because we're really talking about, like what Gyi just went through here is like a multi-touch situation in which the user doesn't really have a good understanding of what they did, right? And so your reporting infrastructure and mindset needs to evolve from the simplistic one-to-one attribution modeling where we can draw pretty pie graphs and think about handling this multi-touch approach. None of this involves asking a third-party tool to make up a query that they think people might be using to then validate this on a system that is otherwise personalized to every other user to give you some bullshit visibility score. None of this is involved in this. This is about real clients, and that's where you need to start.
Yeah, this is about hearing the client's voices, and it's about actually tracking clickstream and tracking tracked phone calls where you can. So that's just for configuring tracking to improve your data infrastructure.
So then, Gyi,
go ahead. Yeah.
What are we going to do? What are the tactics that you believe that we should be working on and how much should we focus and ignore Google because it is going the way of the yellow pages, right?
Wrong. So
no.
It is still a Google most world. and I again, I think you've been on this same camp as I've been in. But I remember when ChatGPT first announced, everyone's like, "Death of Google," and there were all these headlines about Google not keeping up and being behind, Gemini's behind in AI, and blah blah blah. And I was like, "Look, you guys are missing the forest for the trees here." Google has the local business information that powers Google Maps, which they just brought their own Gemini Ask Maps feature to. They have 20 some years of being a verb in search. They have YouTube. They have Gmail.
Have your searcher behavior.
They have the meats. They have all the meats. And so this is going in the direction of extremely personalized. Google is still a highly, and believe me, Near Media is tracking this stuff too. I'm sure you're hopefully if you've implemented the tracking things that we've talked about, you can validate some of this. But I'd be curious to hear if you're a law firm that has, 90%, even 50% of your new business digital originations, non-brand, are coming from ChatGPT. I'd love to hear from you, because the truth is that there's really just a huge overlap between how we've thought about traditional notions of search in terms of tactics, right? Because I don't want people to be misled. The technology is fundamentally different. The user behavior is fundamentally changing. But the things that the machine does to make these quote unquote decisions, which I'm using that term very lightly, are very reminiscent of ideas like citation, co-occurrence, digital PR, getting talked about and mentioned, brand mentions on the places that we believe are part of the training data for the machine. And so for me, how I talk about this is just a reprioritization. Like if you really twisted my arm, like, yes, I think there are some new things you might think about in terms of on-page optimization, right? Like more explicit answers at the beginning of content. So you got a big page of content. You might say, I need a quick summary at the top. It's like it's question and answer format that describes the information on the page, because that is optimized for a machine that's not going to ingest the entire page.
Well, so you mentioned the other things, Gemini is referencing Google searches, right? That was another big component.
They're all grounded in Google searches.
In organic search, right? And so we talk about this being foundationally different, but the biggest signal remains Google search, right? Now, this can evolve. This may change over time. There's lots of reasons this may be different. You mentioned, Gyi, digital PR, and the phrase
citation
digital
economy.
PR. It's a new-ish tactic, and I think what has evolved. I've been doing this literally for 20 years now, for better or worse.
Don't tell anybody.
I know. We took the concept of PR from an SEO perspective and distilled it into a couple of really small things. Fundamentally, it was links, and then it was brand mentions, and then it was these citations. But like this big picture, and I don't mean digital PR. I mean PR in general. This was this thing that SEOs were able to draw out of. And by the way, I got to live in the middle of this, and it was some of the best part of my career was living in the middle of translating traditional PR into a digital tactical element. And that was awesome back in the day. But that was the crux of what made Google the better search engine, was pulling the pieces of PR out, links, citations, brand mentions, as a ranking. We call this ranking factors, right? We're going back to this PR world. What we don't have in the AI world is a much more closed loop of what is actually working. All this, watch, I'm going to make Gyi pissed off right now. How do you feel about domain rank, Gyi? Right?
So what? I don't even know what that is anymore.
Right. The reason domain rank was a thing was it was this attempt to quantify and backdoor the value of links and the authority of your website. And it was all poorly done and vastly inaccurate and didn't take into account local, but it was a quantification of PR. And it was, you could then run these complex models, multi variable testing models to try and figure out what was actually having an impact. And that's how we did this whole weighted ranking factors. we don't have the feedback loop anymore. And I do not think we're going to have the feedback loop at a mass scale, which makes the AI very difficult to evaluate the outputs because, as we started with, it is highly personalized. There's a ton of flux in the results, and you can't run outputs at a level that you used to be able to do. No, and that's why the people who grew up in some of the SEO world are now claiming to have backdoored this stuff, like Rand tried to do back in the days when it was SEO Moz, right? And Rand made his whole thing around like, I figured this out, and he would run these studies and like be able to make these certain statements. We don't have that because you cannot run the studies anymore.
So I wanted to give another example of why this is such a problem to really drive this home. And I'm going to give you a pop quiz. I don't expect you to know the answers to this because why would you? But if you had to get, so search engine ranking, which is a platform that does, you guessed it, part of what they do is rank tracking. But they put out a lot of great research, and they did a study on Google's AI mode. So they did what we talked about, a bunch of synthetic queries on AI mode. And then they identified the frequency or what percentage of the time different domains are cited as sources in AI mode results. Now, here's my pop quiz for you. What do you give me your best guess for the top 3 most cited domains? Now, remember, this isn't legal specific, which I think we should talk about that second. This is, very broad prompt query universe because they're trying to do it at scale. Top 3 domains that are cited in Google AI mode responses.
Well, the first 2 are Google and YouTube.
Yes, you're correct. Conrad, tell us. So yes, Google and YouTube are 1 and 2.
Well, but this is why I'm struggling on number 3. You're gonna be in the realm. It depends.
You got the most important one.
Well, so this goes back to this point. It is self-referencing itself, right? It's
self-referencing itself.
Google is
citing
itself.
Google, and if you do an AI mode prompt about best personal injury lawyers near you, which we don't even know that people use it like that, but let's just say that they did. It's creating responses that are contextual links to brand searches for the law firm. So remember what this means. It means that when someone clicks and calls you from that AI mode response, it's going to register as a brand search and click, even though they came in looking for car accident lawyers near me.
What's number 3, dude? I do not want to say Reddit because I feel like I just should have a shot
Reddit's
collar.
4. Reddit's 4.
Okay. So I got 3 of the top 4. I feel like we're on.
You did.
What's that awful TV game show where you have to pick what the survey says?
It's
I got 3 out of 4.
Family Feud.
Family Feud. Conrad is failing on number 3 for Family Feud. It depends.
It's Facebook.
On the query.
I'll tell you, it's Facebook. It's Facebook.
Okay.
Now,
that surprises me.
What you just said is so important. It depends on the query or prompt in this particular instance. The number, and that's the thing too, is in the non-brand bottom of the funnel law firm universe, guess what? The link is Google Business Profiles.
Yeah.
So it's Google Business Profiles and self-referential brand searches or self-referential non-brand queries to other searches. So, best car accident lawyer near me gives a list of car accident lawyers, and then there's a follow-up search that says, did you mean semi-truck lawyers? And then that's a link to a new search right in the search interface. And so anyway, tactically, what should you be doing? Guess what? Google Business Profile, test reviews, local SEO, YouTube. I'd be doubling down on YouTube. Google, I think, has every incentive in the world to continue to rely heavily on YouTube to train Gemini. And then you can take your pick. Now, to your point, in legal,
that's right.
More specifically, what do we see? And it's search engine ranking also broke it down by category. And interestingly, in legal, Google also is makes up most of the citations in legal. This other stat's been floating around real quick and then we can move on because I think we've already spent too much time on this. But
we have.
We've been hearing a lot of people say, I heard LinkedIn is the number one citation for lawyers, and for professional. There was some research done that for some, I think it was on Profound maybe, but in the professional services landscape, that LinkedIn was highly sorted. And so again, what's the tactical takeaway? You got to publish. You got to unlock your expertise across all these different places. It's hard.
It's across all these different places. This is a digital PR. I hate to use this phrase. I'm going to gag. Flood the zone.
Flood the zone.
But that's where we are at this point in time. So I predict, Gyi, that what's really going to happen, the people who genuinely understand and care about their clients winning in AI, we're going to move back to this digital PR concept, right? The people who really are able to help their clients or the clients themselves. This is a digital PR game, and that is going to be what is going to win. And just like PR, we're going back to those John Wanamaker days of saying, I don't know which part of my 50% of marketing is wasted. That is the direction that we are headed in the next 12 months. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, Gyi and I are going to talk about whose heads are going to roll in the digital marketing world now that we have AI to take all of our jobs. And our very first review from across the pond, this coming from Portugal. Love the episode with Ben and Brian Glass. I especially liked it when you guys talked about sharing hobbies like soccer refereeing makes you more interesting than just talking business. It made me realize that I should start boring people with my bad cooking instead of just work stuff. Thank you so much, Gyi. Where was I? All right, I don't like Portugal.
Love Portugal, my favorite place now. That is. Appreciate that comment and nod.
Yes, and we love this geographic diversity. We also have a concentration problem. We have tons of reviews at Apple Podcasts, but I know some of you, just like me, are subscribers on Spotify. So please, if you are a Spotify subscriber, please leave us a message, leave us a review, ask us a question so we can get a little more visibility on the Spotify algo. We talked about, Gyi, the in-house marketer, what's going on inside law firms. We learned a lot by listening to Bob Ambrosi's Startup Alley pitches. And my quick takeaway of how many were there? Were there 17? Something like that.
Is there that many?
The vast majority of them, 16 out of 17, were centered around AI. The one that won was actually amazingly not. And quick call out to Callbox, which needs a much better name. But they help people with accounts receivables, which is the worst part of any business. And so check out Callbox. It's COLL box, right?
Yes. And in fact, Matt sat down with me for an interview at Techshow that we will be dropping on an upcoming Lunch Hour Legal Marketing episode.
So
if not
unsolicited pitch for Callbox. But they weren't around AI. The vast majority of the pitches at Lunch Hour Legal not Lunch Hour, at ABA Techshow's Startup Alley looked like this. This is a way we've been using AI in our firm. This is something we created in the firm. We think it's really, really cool. And we put a name on it. And we maybe put up a website, maybe not. There were a bunch of these. We probably don't even have our own email address. It's still the law firm, call Betty at smithandjoneslawfirm.com. But it looked like a bunch of skunkwork projects in AI that had happened inside a law firm that were then tried to productize. And that was super fascinating to me, Gyi, because I think it gives an interesting perspective on how this industry is going to evolve. Clearly, and I have clients like this, you probably have clients like this, there's a lot of fascination and tinkering and messing around inside a law firm with AI. You're seeing this as well with your clients, I'm assuming?
Absolutely. In fact, I think
Yeah.
part of our role is going to be supporting them in those endeavors as it relates to their growth function. I would also, another example of this at Techshow that you and I experienced, I think we mentioned this in maybe the news, but, and we'll leave the company anonymous, but we talked to several tech companies. Oh, we're not going to leave it anonymous?
Come on. Wait, no one listens to this for us to be polite.
We talked to people who were partners, who had customers who were contacting the company saying, hey, we're building our own thing, so we need to be able to export data and we need your API access and all this kind of stuff. And so to Conrad's point, validated across multiple data points, there are builders at law firms. There are the second thing that I observe, and we should also mention, and we also did an interview, but LHLM booth sat right next to Mega, which is, if you've seen their Facebook ads, promises to replace your agency with agents.
Yeah, they didn't know us. It was actually really awkward. They didn't know who we were because we were there as Lunch Hour Legal Marketing. And they started out talking to us about how they are replacing agencies.
I thought it was great, and I'm great. And we have that interview. And AJ, thank you so much for joining us, and we will break that out. We wanted to, we're fresh off a tech show, so we still, we got some production queue here. But point is that it's not just law firms building, software to practice. It's people building agency replacements. I'm sure law firms are working on automating their marketing themselves. And the third thing is that when you read some of these press releases and headlines, or you get pitched by tech folks at the booths, it's becoming kind of obvious that they believe that regardless of what their software currently does, they can build something that replaces every other competitor in the space. And so you got pressure top down from the big players, the existing players who think that they can, if you got a feature that you need from something else, they can build it. You got bottom up pressure coming from actual law firms. You've got a whole marketplace of in between law firms and AI architects that are now also, so the barrier to create software is going to zero. What does that mean for tech companies, in-house marketers, agencies, vendors, and all this stuff? Ready, set, go.
So here's your answer without much forethought. What we saw, and it was a massive area. There was a ton of money by well-funded big software companies and a bunch of bootstrapped software companies. Everyone was jumping on AI. I don't think we got the walkthrough of the hall where we counted how many booths said AI on it. I don't think we did that. That was one of the things I mentioned.
We haven't. It's in the production queue. I've got the video, but we're gonna. What we should do? We should do a happy hour, and you and I just watch the video and count.
Okay, I'll do that. The drinking game with AI. Every time we see an AI booth, but it was very clear there were a ton of money, a ton of software, a ton of investment in AI, and yet their primary competition was less the booth next door to them and more their client, their end client. Mm-hmm. So it's going to be, people talk about AI replacing agencies. I think my vision of the legal world in the next 2 years probably looks like bespoke systems built on AI agents within the firm, not necessarily relying on if you have a product, if you are selling a product that you think is going to fit 1,000 clients in the legal industry in the same way, you are sorely mistaken at this point in time, because those 1,000 clients are going to be able to take that data in and work the product and work their systems and work the way they want to work. So I think we may actually be ending up going back to this system that is bespoke to any given firm, because it is so easy to design, deploy, and improve on things that are already in the hands of that firm.
Yeah, I mean, again, the I think we talked about this on the office hours that we did while we were at Tech Show. But when the barrier to create software goes to essentially zero for all intents and purposes, maybe it's not zero, but it's pretty low. Businesses across the board, just like us, are going to be making decisions about whether they can build their own technology solution, rent a technology solution with a partner. And, the pitch will be security and maintenance and those kind of things. And we'll see, you can respond to that in a second. We'll see if that continues to be true as the technology gets better. But also, it doesn't mean, if you're a law firm listening to this, it doesn't mean that you have to be a vibe coder by any means. The point is that there are going to be a lot, the barrier to create is going to be low. The options are going to proliferate. But to Conrad's point, I look at this very much like this is the rise of the AI-enabled solo, where what I'm going to be doing as a lawyer is very client experience, definitely expertise layer on top of what the AI is doing. But the technology is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in the areas of the past. And so again, this whole concept of lawyer plus AI beats lawyer without, I think is absolutely true. But how that solution will be fulfilled, I think these companies are in a race right now because their pitch has to be headcount reduction. You don't get, even the people in Silicon Valley that are talking about the big AI companies, they're like, these valuations only make sense if they're in the light of the savings from a payroll standpoint, replacement of work standpoint that they deliver to your business. And so I think there's a lot of forces at play here that are just going to disrupt this entire thing.
I think there's a couple other things that a larger software company can and should be bringing to the table at this point. You hit on two of them. One is security, right? Like, what am I feeding into these systems? Like that is a big question and concern. If I was into this world, I would be really interested in the security side of this. The other is maintenance. Like this stuff, a very constantly changing environment. The sands are shifting under our feet all the time. How do we keep up with this stuff? I think having something that you don't have to consistently worry about and feed and update, like having that maintenance part is very valuable. And the other thing, Gyi, we've talked about this in a marketing context, there's a data size. There's value in data. There's value in being able to look at lots of stuff. And most small solos, et cetera, will not be able to get, when you have something that requires a statistically relevant piece of data or information, you can't do that at a onesie twosie firm. And so, and we started this talking about Smokeball and Thomson Reuters, but there is value in the size of the data that you have access to. And so I think, one of the problems with AI, we've talked about this before, is it can do a summary of a very data insignificant concept, right? And you have these outliers until you have enough data to actually make a good decision. You have these outliers that can otherwise give you confidence that because that's what the AI said, right? In your results. And so I do think there's value in size there.
No doubt about it. But again, I think that this is a really interesting. We're all facing this. And I think that, and I would encourage, again, tactically, what should you do? I think you should evaluate every function at your firm through the filter of, can tech do this? Is this the type of thing that I am going to invest in building myself? Is this the type of thing that function that I'm going to partner with an established company on? If tech can't do it, are we solving this in a different way? But the idea that that is just going to continue in this current iteration. The number of companies and the amount of investment is so all over the place right now. I just don't see many of these companies surviving when you think about all these different factors at play. And with that, we are out of time. Thank you so much, dear listeners and viewers. If you just landed here, please do subscribe. Join us for office hours Thursday at 1 p.m. In fact, as you're listening to this, hopefully that's tomorrow at 1 p.m. And subscribe, comment, send topic suggestions, ask questions, get to the summit. Until next time, Conrad and Gyi for Lunch Hour Legal Marketing.
Money makes a it makes a world go round. Money makes a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round. Yeah, money make a world go round.